sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice, oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed, Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice, Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey, Jimmy Lakey.
Well, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. I don't know what that means, but I've heard it said before. Nice to have you here on a Monday edition of the show, the August 25th edition of the program, the year of our Lord 2025. 082525. If you're writing me a check out this morning, feel free to spell my name correctly, Jimmy Lakey, and I'll give you the address whenever you ask for it. All right. Good to have you here on the program. It is Monday. Glorious day the Lord has made, and lots of things to get to today. Friday, I left the show early. I was a little bit under the weather, for those of you inquiring, which none of you have. Except producer Chad did check in on me, make sure I wasn't dead. The rest of you left me all by myself all weekend. Not an email, not a card, not a balloon bouquet, nothing. Not a thing. That's all right. Even Delilah avoided me all weekend long, which is actually a good thing. That helped me in my rest and recovery. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here, but I do feel much better. Somebody said there's a virus going around called the Noro or NORAD, or I don't know, some kind of virus. And Dr. Fauci warned us. No, it wasn't Dr. Fauci. And they said, no, it happens real quick. Just hit you and you're gone. Some people said 24 hours. Some people say 12 hours. Some people said 4 days. I don't know if that's what I had, but I feel better. And I was better by Friday night. I was feeling a lot better. By Saturday, I was probably back to 90%. And by Sunday, I was sleepy. But that was Sunday. I wanted a nap time, and it was cloudy and overcast, and good nap weather where I live. All right, what do we want to talk about today? Let's talk about Cracker Barrel. That's coming up here in just a minute. A lot of hoopla, a lot of conversation. I have not really even mentioned the Cracker Barrel on the program in a while, except maybe talking about what I like to eat there. But we'll talk about the rebranding of Cracker Barrel, give you a chance to sound off on the program, and I'll give you some thoughts and some ideas, and maybe some comical rebrand ideas for the Cracker Barrel. That's coming up here in just a moment, but it does bring a question of the day up. How many of you regularly go to the Cracker Barrel anyway? And if you do go, are you no longer going to go there? Is all this hoopla that's being brought about by this Cracker Barrel rebranding, are you as offended as we're told Americans are as offended? Now, I have not been to a Cracker Barrel in a while. There is one. I think it's about 15 miles south of me and about 15, 20 miles north of me. And it's not something I like Cracker Barrel. I enjoy the Cracker Barrel. I like the good Southern cooking. I think the last time I was at a Cracker Barrel was probably last November or so. I'd flown into Texas to see some family, and for a late night snack, we went over to the Cracker Barrel before I flew out the next morning to Africa. I was doing a little transition stop. So I haven't been to Cracker Barrel in a while. When my son was traveling with sports as a kid, oftentimes you'd stay in hotel areas where there's a Cracker Barrel when he's playing the 7-on-7 football league. And it was oftentimes a Cracker Barrel was an option for late night dining or just dining, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But my son wasn't a big fan of the Cracker Barrel. So I was like, hey, you want to go to Cracker Barrel? He was like, nope. Dang it. And so I tried to talk him into it, so he didn't even do it. But let me ask you your Cracker Barrel habits. I'd love to hear. Have you been a frequent Cracker Barreler? And if you are a frequent Cracker Barreler, are you going to continue to be a Cracker Barreler? And be quite honest, have you seen or heard anything about the rebrand, the logo, the new paint job, all that stuff that has caused you to be greatly offended? Or are we just told that everybody is offended by this great rebrand? It's a big news story, but is there anything really there that you're really, truly offended about on your Cracker Barrel experience? Love to hear from you. Love to get your take on that. So give me your Cracker Barrel thoughts, and I'll get to some of mine here in just a bit. Coming up on the program, John Deaton's a U.S. Marine, a veteran, a cancer survivor, father of 3 daughters, a trial attorney, and he's going to talk with us. He's going to talk with us here in just a moment. A little bit of Vladimir Putin. Anybody remember the Putin thing? Alaska seems like a long time away, doesn't it? A long time away ago. And then last Monday, was it, that all the European leaders showed up there at the White House with Volodymyr Zelensky? And everybody thought that a peace deal was imminent. It was going to happen. It was about to happen. It's on the brink. And what happened to the peace deal? We'll talk about that with Mr. John Deaton here in just a few moments on the program. He's now retired and no longer active in the U.S. Marines, but we will get to him in just a bit as well. John Bolton, while we were doing the show on Friday, John Bolton's house was being raided, if you will, or sought after by the FBI, and they were looking for something about documents. Now, there's still speculation as to what documents they were looking for. Was it a thumb drive? Was it a whole stack of papers? Or not? We're not sure yet. They have not talked or released a search warrant. But what we do know through sources that talk to the media from the Department of Justice, that they were looking for documents in regard to documents that were classified that he had perhaps had in his possession. Some of the things I was not aware of as we did the show on Friday talking about John Bolton. We did talk about the media. He's now a darling of the media. He's a persecuted man. But they used to want to hang him from the highest tree because he was a Bushy and he was considered a war hawk, and he was considered to be like Dick Cheney, somebody that should be tried at The Hague for war crimes. And so the left hated him until it became convenient to adopt him into one of their own, and they're going to adopt him into one of their own as a guy who hates Trump. So we can talk about the Bolton raid, but there was something I didn't realize, that when he was taken to court regarding his book that he put out in 2020, whenever his book came out, he was taken to court, and a judge admonished him in the courtroom and said, hey, listen, you're being challenged about having classified information in here. And if you publish this could be a leak to national security stuff, and you could be subjecting yourself to prosecution by the government. So he was tapped on the head and said, John, pay attention. What you're trying to put out here regarding your book is not necessarily stuff that you have the right to put up with, but his arrogance caused him to go out there and put the book out anyway. So is it about classified documents that he released the evidence of in his book? We don't know. There's some people that are speculating also that maybe there was some information that he was trafficking. Now, notice there was a timeline of what happened. Several weeks ago, Donald Trump and the Department of Justice and the intelligence agencies revoked the security clearance of John Bolton, which tells me one of two things. Either they thought that he had was no longer needed the security clearance and he was being punished because he had used it in the past in a poor way, or maybe published the book, or is it because they sensed some kind of ongoing back and forth with him and foreign agencies? Not sure. It's all speculation at this point, but nobody has actually been able to testify as to the exact documents they were looking for. Are these documents that just simply appeared in his book and that they're trying to find out what else he had beside what he put in the book? Or are there other documents that he was still getting, or information that he was still getting up until the time he had the security clearance that was somehow being shared in a different way? Maybe a sequel, if you will. So anyway, it's going to be interesting to watch the John Bolton thing, because when John Bolton's house was raided, if you will, there were no live cameras. Remember when they went after so many people in the Trump administration? Somehow the news media always found out, the SWAT team was there, and they banged down the doors, and they really a lot of flash bang and pomp and circumstance. Roger Stone and some other people in the Trump administration, they had people in the swimming pool. I mean, they were really looking out for things. And this was just simply, it looks like what it was a knock on the door from the FBI, and whoever answered the door, maybe it was John Bolton's wife, answered the door. They said, FBI, we have a search warrant, let us in. And that was it. And there was no broken glass, no anything. Remember Mar-a-Lago, the weaponized Department of Justice laid things out in a very sloppy way and took photos of them, took photos of evidence. The Trump administration in this instance is not even telling you what they were looking for, let it alone. The Department of Justice is not telling you what they were looking for, let alone posting it on the floor and posing for photos. So there is a big difference. This is not a revenge thing. It doesn't seem to be. This seems to be like they were really looking for something, and what they have, we shall We shall find out in due course. All right, the question of the day comes back to that Cracker Barrel. I want to read some of your comments. I'm going to get into some of the Cracker Barrel hype, and it's amazing how much conversation has been had about the Cracker Barrel. And maybe it's just the Fox News, maybe it's just conservative media. I looked at the logo, I thought it was dumb, but I don't know if I was offended by it. Jim says this: we go to Cracker Barrel maybe 2 to 3 times a year, depending on when we travel. Haven't ever been to the Loveland location. It's just a local location. I think a lot of folks do that. Now, when I was in, I liked Cracker Barrel because I always like a place that has breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And there were certain things at Cracker Barrel that I always thought looked good, but I only would get certain things. I would never change my routine. The hash brown casserole is something that I just have this nostalgic feeling about, and I love to have it, even if I'm not supposed to have it, even if I shouldn't have it, even if it's going to cause me weight gain or go over the carb count. If I go there, I want that hash brown casserole. That's one of those things. The breakfast, yeah, they have good breakfast, lunch, dinner. I like the Cracker Barrel. Now, here's what I saw. Now, they're showing photos, and I have not been to a remodeled Cracker Barrel yet. And they're showing photos that they put up brighter colors. And evidently, Cracker Barrel corporate had, I guess, hunters that went out to antique stores in a lot of places in local areas, and they would customize the decoration of a Cracker Barrel restaurant. A lot of it was local or regional nostalgia. And I just saw what I could see in the photos that people were posting is that they put a lighter color on the wall so it's not so dark in there. They still have the fireplaces, have the checkers. They still have the rocking chairs, I guess, out front. But is it the white paint? Is it the brighter colors? Some people said they got rid of the nostalgia. Now, there are reports that at corporate, they had done some woke DEI training, make sure everybody at corporate Cracker Barrel had their pronouns correctly. The most offensive part seems to have been that they changed the logo. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. And so I wanted to look it up because I thought, well, if you're trying to politically correct Cracker Barrel, wouldn't you want to get rid of the cracker out of the name? Well, the Cracker Barrel, I didn't know this. I've learned this all this time, and I'm going to educate you. There were physical barrels that contained soda crackers that were shipped to rural stores, especially in the early 20th century. When empty, those barrels became impromptu gathering spots, symbolizing the comfort and camaraderie of a small town life. So the phrase Cracker Barrel, I don't know if you know this, it's kind of a joke that they got rid of the cracker on the barrel. Well, it wasn't about that. The Cracker Barrel, and I didn't know this, I learned it myself. Maybe I'm the only guy who didn't know it. It originated from old country stores in the United States. Soda crackers were shipped in large barrels to protect them from breaking during their transportation. The barrels then became the central features of the stores, serving as places where people would gather around, share news, they'd play games on the Cracker Barrel, like checkers, and enjoy all sorts of conversation. It was similar to the modern-day water cooler. That's what the Cracker Barrel was. And so the guy leaning on the cracker, it's not about him being a honky cracker on the barrel. That's the Cracker Barrel down to the local general store, and that's where everybody gathered around like the water cooler. And so that's what the phrase Cracker Barrel meant. So some people say by removing the old fart from the Cracker Barrel, you are kind of like taking the Native American lady off the land of Lake's margin. You're taking Aunt Jemima off the syrup or what have you. Let me ask you, how many of you were truly offended by what you've seen so far, heard so far from Cracker Barrel? And I say this not that maybe we should be offended. Maybe we're supposed to be angry. People say that the stock prices have gone down. But let me ask you, may I ask you, if I could, is anybody going to stop going to the Cracker Barrel? I'm heading out of town on Thursday afternoon to go see my son at college and handle some things there. And I know there's a Cracker Barrel in the town. And I told producer Chad, I said, if I have a chance, I'm going to go to the Cracker Barrel when I'm out in Missouri, because that's where my son goes to school, and I will see how the Cracker Barrel's doing there. But I'd like to ask you, is anybody out there truly offended? I mean, it's a fascinating story, and there's a lot of funny stuff on the internet out there about this, but is anybody out there truly offended by the Cracker Barrel rebranding? Pray tell, let us know. We'd love to hear from you if you really are, or if you've been to the Cracker Barrel and have gone in and seen some of the remodeling, feel free. Is this much ado about nothing? Is this one of those PR campaigns that, with Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light, that was really kind of grotesque. That was a person basically saying, we don't want you to sell beer to just the frat boys. We want to be the brand of the transgenders. And that was really false marketing. I'm not quite sure that I buy that this is as big of a blunder as Bud Light, except that the media is hyping it up to be. And again, you guys all tell me that I'm wrong in the chat rooms out there, but is anybody really that offended by it? Again, I'm not defending Cracker Barrel. I like the old logo. I don't like things changing much. I didn't mind it, but I understand if you're a brand and you're trying to be relevant. Like, for instance, my son, you form your habits of where you go to eat at a very young age. When we would travel, when he was playing 7-on-7 traveling football, we would travel, and his teammates not necessarily wanted to go to Cracker Barrel. They had found a local restaurant or another place locally that they had heard about that we wanted to go. That's where I first looked up the place, Dave's Hot Chicken. First place I ever found a Dave's Hot Chicken is I wanted to go to Cracker Barrel, and my son and his friends that played on the team that were in my rental car, they wanted to go find this place called Dave's Hot Chicken, which is a fast food chain that started in California. So I understand if you run the brand of the Cracker Barrel that you need to revitalize yourself and maybe freshen up put some fresh lipstick on the pig. So the lighter colors that I'm seeing did not bother me. It did not shock me. I was not bothered by it at all. But what say you? Were you bothered by it? Or is anybody truly, is this outrage feigned by conservatives? I'm not exactly sure it is, but is it just kind of a hyperbolic reaction, or is anybody really that greatly bothered by it? Stacy says, I was a little sad, but I was not throwing a fit. We used to go there a little after church when we lived near Arlington, Texas. Now we go every couple of months. Arloa said, voice of reason in East Texas today. Arloa had said earlier that the new logo make it less easy to spot the sign, in my opinion. It will just blend in with the surroundings. So that's what I'm thinking. So far, of all of you folks who are pretty conservative, some of you are right of Attila the Hun, I think, out there watching your views out there. I don't think a lot of you are that offended. Riches have not been there many times, would rather go to Lambert's, home of the thrower rolls. Well, good. Rich, we have no clue what you're talking about. But if you're around where Rich is at, go to Lambert's. I guess that's another restaurant. I don't know. I'm very serious. I'm not that offended by it. RJ says, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's true. But maybe it was broke. I didn't see their bottom line. I didn't know, obviously there's a demographic of people when I traveled with my son that were not ever going to go to the Cracker Barrel, and that was not their thing. And maybe you try to make a run for it. Now, is it going to work for them? I don't know. But we're very sensitive. This is where I wonder the branding expert, the rumor that the guy who's the head of the marketing who decided to get rid of the old guy on the Cracker Barrel, that he's been terminated because of stock prices. I've not cooperated whether that happened. But is anybody really what he didn't realize is we're very sensitive that parts of America, whether you're the Native American on the butter or the margarine, or whether you're the black lady on the syrup or the pancake mix, people get kind of tired of their iconic brands being dumbed down, washed away, and they don't like it. And you can rebrand in a very different way, and I think that's the sensitivity that we have there. Underdog says, Cracker Barrel, why mess with something that's not broken? Why not improve the quality of food, make the bathrooms as clean as Buc-ee's? Well, that's a good point. There's ways you could improve the business otherwise. But again, this is also, I want to be careful. I'm not defending Cracker Barrel at all. You ready? Oh, Stacy says, I love the restaurant that throws the rolls at you in Missouri. It's called Lambert's. My son's been in Missouri for a couple of years at college. I've never heard of Lambert's. Okay, Delilah, put it on my calendar. Look for Lambert's, please. Thank you. I'll be there this week. I appreciate it. We say it ain't broke, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I agree, but maybe it was broke. Maybe we didn't see some things that were going wrong, and maybe they did see that their constituency or their clientele was slowly dying off, and they needed to freshen it up and try to attract a younger group of crowds. So it's easy for us to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But maybe if you're looking at the financials, it was broke. I'm just saying, I'm not defending the craziness, but I'm asking, is anybody really that offended by this thing? Or is this just a good PR spin up? And now everybody's talking about Cracker Barrel. And now people that haven't gone to Cracker Barrel in a long time, how many of you have had this thought? Haven't been in a long time, but I want to go see it. I want to go see what they changed. and they could improve the quality of food. Even though I like the Cracker Barrel, I like the food. It could be better. It could be better. I'm a Southern boy. I know what better food is, and believe me, it could be better, but I still like it. All right, we'll dive into this further throughout the course of the morning. Got some funny stuff from the internet, but I'm actually looking for someone who is really offended and really is pissed off about this. And I'm not. I'm not. I'm going to go test out the cracker. It's going to give me a reason for some pancakes here real soon. I don't have time this week, but maybe when I get to Missouri to see my son this week, I'll be able to do that. All right, let me bring into the program my first guest of the morning, unrelated to the Cracker Barrel. His name is John Deaton. Served his country in the U.S. Marines, and we always appreciate having him on. Let me also give you some other insights behind John Deaton. A cancer survivor, father of 3 daughters. That's another type of survivor, trial attorney. Has overcome a lot of challenges, built a successful life, advocate for the underrepresented communities. He has served as a special assistant U.S. attorney in the District of Arizona, and he joins us in the studio hotline, the studio green room right now, if we hit the right buttons. Mr. John Deaton. Good morning, John. Welcome back in.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Let's talk about, first of all, your website. In 2024, you ran as a Republican candidate up against U.S. Senate candidate Elizabeth Warren. Where do people follow all the daily activities of John Deaton?
Well, they can follow me on X, John E. Deaton 1. I have a radio show called The Hard Truth on WRKO, iHeart. And you can read my book, Food Stamp Warrior, that's available on Amazon. And I might have some news in the future coming out, Jimmy. I ran against Elizabeth Warren, and, I was a no-name candidate. No one knew who I was. It was February 1st of 2024, the same year. No one was stepping up. And I got beat. I got my butt kicked, but I was the first Republican to get over 40% in 30 years in Massachusetts. And Ed Markey's up. I haven't decided yet, but he's been in Washington for 50 years and he's 80. 80's fine, but 50 years is quite a bit too long. And so I'm thinking about putting my hat in the ring again.
Real quick before I want to talk about Putin and the Ukraine and Russia in a second, but you speak of Massachusetts. Your governor came out a couple of weeks ago, is very vocal that she's going to take retribution against Texas because they're gerrymandering or changing up their districts. Massachusetts, explain the reality. If I'm looking at it, you said you got 40% of the votes for U.S. Senate, and yet there's not 40% of the congressional seats that represent Republicans. There's 0%. So 40% of the people vote Republican, but 0 representation for Republicans in Congress.
Absolutely. Massachusetts is a case study in one-party rule. Every single statewide and federal office, so 9 U.S. congressmen and women, all Democrats, 2 U.S. senators, Democrats, in every state office, governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, etc., Democrats. Some of them far left radicals, not just Democrats. And it's crazy. When she got up there, as you said, and she's gonna redistrict. Where are you gonna redistrict? We already don't have a voice. And so the only good news, Jimmy, is that they went so far left that they've offended center left people. And so I think that a lot of people don't know Massachusetts was the second best state President Trump improved over 2020. So there is an undercurrent of people tired of this one-party rule in Massachusetts, I think.
Let me ask you, do the people of Massachusetts kind of wake up with this? Because sometimes people pop their head up in protest and you go, oh, I didn't realize that was a problem until you pointed that out. I wondered how many people in Massachusetts had actually calculated and said, we live in blue. That's all. We have all Democrats in Congress. But they never put the comparison and said, wait, 35, 40% of us vote Republicans. Sometimes you don't even, you're like the frog in the pot of water that got kind of boiling, but at real slow pace. You didn't realize, oh crap, it's worse than I thought here in this state. Was this a wake-up call to some people?
I think so. And like I said, listen, they're talking about banning plastic grocery bags at a time when people can't afford groceries to go in the bags, right? Yeah. Or you got politicians like Ed Markey talking about the pie in the sky, Green New Deal, and these alternative energy mandates that are crushing people in Massachusetts with the electric bill, 75% higher than national average, and housing prices, all kinds of things. And so I think they're waking up. We're going to find out, soon, but you would think that 40% would warrant at least one congressperson, right?
You would think so. John Deaton is my guest. If you're listening later on in the day on the audio version podcast, some of you watch it by the end of the day. Thousands of ear holes will hear this show. Many of the podcast forums, Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, etc. John Deaton will give you all his contact here in just a moment. Follow him on the X, John E. Deaton, Deaton 1. That's on your screen. Or if you're not watching the screen because you're listening to audio later in the podcast day, feel free to follow him, John Deaton. John, let's dive in. It's been just over a week ago that we had a Vladimir Putin show up in Alaska, meet Donald Trump. Everybody was a little bit optimistic that maybe we're on the brink of a peace deal. Fast forward to a week ago, you had European leaders and Volodymyr Zelensky show up in the White House in D.C., and everybody's trying to work out the details. And then there was talk that Putin and Zelensky were going to get together mano-a-mano, one-on-one, and they're going to hash out some things before Trump gets involved. Yeah, that seems like a long time ago. Now we have Putin bombing the heebie-jeebies out of Ukraine again, showing no mercy, showing no signs of stopping. Did anything stick in that meeting with Trump and Zelensky and Putin and the European leaders?
Well, I think some of it, listen, President Trump said that, that they had a long way to go about reaching a deal, but that he was optimistic. I think some of this is posturing. Right now, Putin does have the advantage on the ground, on the battleground. Russia controls about 20% of Ukrainian territory. And so I think, in speculation, but I think some of this is Putin posturing that, listen, because Zelensky is still talking about that Russia, if we're going to reach a peace deal, Russia has to give up Crimea. Well, Crimea was annexed by Putin in 2014 under Barack Obama, and he said that's a line in the sand. Trump said that. So I think some of this is posturing, but hopefully Trump can get a trilateral meeting where he mediates between Zelensky and Putin, and we'll see if they can get a deal done. They really need to. And I mean, we're talking about 1 million people dead or injured in this war, and a lot of lives being destroyed.
Now, no, Putin's not a lover of life. I mean, he's importing people that are being forced to fight from North Korea just to have some bodies to throw at the battle here. What is in your estimation, the long-term motivation for Putin not getting that peace deal? I mean, he's obviously can take a little bit of land. Is it saving face back at home? Is he afraid to get all this military people back in Moscow because they're going to coup him? What's his motivation for staying in, knowing that he's probably not going to take much more land than what he has now?
Well, I think that what he's doing right now is hoping that if he can get Crimea and other areas, and there's an assurance that Ukraine's not going to enter NATO, and that America can still give Ukraine defense assurances, that maybe sanctions that have been against Putin could be lifted for the Russian economy. I mean, that's one strategy where he's digging his heels in so that later he can say, look, if you're willing to do this, Trump, lift sanctions against Russia, allow us to expand our oil to the allies, to the West, then maybe we can get a deal done.
Do you think that, I mean, it sounds like all these things, they've security guarantees have been talked about, which land they're going to swap. It seems like all those things have gotten there, and Donald Trump has not implemented these really deadly tariffs that he's threatened. Why doesn't Putin just say, okay, please, before the tariffs hit, let's figure this out? It seems like was he stalling for time in Alaska, just trying to make it look like we wanted peace, but he didn't?
I think there's a lot of that gamesmanship and the fact that, listen, for Putin, it was the first time that the president of Russia was on American soil since the 80s. He got to be seen globally on a par with President Trump. And so I think it bolstered his image for him, I'm sure. But at the same time, I think that what we're going to see, Jimmy, is that at some point, Trump's going to, I think, see which one is being more stubborn. Is it Zelensky or is it Putin? And if it's Putin, I think we're going to see Trump get more aggressive against him.
We have heard the phrase that perhaps Europe, not the U.S. directly, but Europe, could provide Ukraine with long-range missiles, which they haven't, which would reach deep into the heart of the old Soviet Union or Russia. Is that something that Ukraine is going to need long-term, or is that something that's going to risk escalation and literally maybe bring about a World War III? I hear it talked about, hey, Ukraine should have long-range missiles provided by Europe, but is that what we want?
I don't think it's what we want, because listen, when the last time that was brought up with Putin, he brought up the use of tactical nuclear weapons, and so a lot of dangerous rhetoric when you get to that point. I think that there is a deal reachable where the United States with Europe also obviously paying for it, gives certain guarantees after a peace deal. If Russia invades again, that the United States and Europe will stand up to defend themselves, to defend Ukraine. But right now, I think that Vladimir Putin has no incentive to come to the table. And until he does, I think he's just playing the long game.
Again, the voice of John Deaton, if you're listening on the podcast version of the show. Later in the day, if you're watching live on all the platforms, dozens and dozens of bazillions, and I don't know, we're like 4 or 5 Facebook feeds for several, all these places. So wherever you're listening, glad to have you later in the day. And you can't see the screen, that's John Deaton. We'll give you his website here in just a moment. It's fascinating to watch how a week ago we thought maybe we're real close. Now it doesn't seem like we're so close. Is this just the ebb and flow of negotiation? Is this something that Donald Trump's one day is going to go, you know what, I'm tired of messing with this. I have other issues. I got to get out of this negotiation.
Yeah, I think Trump is a bit disappointed, because before the meeting with Putin in Alaska, Trump talked about how a ceasefire needed to be the first step, which, of course, Jimmy, makes sense, right? Put down your guns, stop killing each other. That's probably a good first step to trying to reach a long-term peace agreement. But Putin isn't interested in a ceasefire. Zelensky is, much more than Putin, because Putin has the advantage on the ground right now. And so I think Trump was a bit disenfranchised, because after that, he took that off the table and then basically said, look, Ukraine isn't going to become a member of NATO, and there's going to have to be some form of territorial swap between the parties in order for a deal to get done. And so I think Trump's genuinely a little frustrated right now with Putin.
Well, he's knocked out quite a few wars here in the last several months, and this is would be the latest and the greatest if he can get it done. Any prognostications or predictions? How does this play out, John?
Yeah, I think at some point Trump's going to get aggressive with Putin. I think eventually he will get that trilateral agreement. I think he's going to have to sort of give Zelensky a real coming to the moment that, Crimea is off the table, and that if he can get to get Russia to back off and give up some of the other territories, that he's going to have to accept certain conditions. And whoever is the one being more stubborn, I think, is going to see the wrath of Trump. If it's Putin, if Putin just refuses, I think Trump's going to employ much more significant economic sanctions against Russia, including our allies who buy Russian oil as well, which is their number one source of revenue. But I'm optimistic. I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple months, but hopefully by the end of the year.
Mike Pence, former vice president, and some others have said maybe you just go ahead and kick on these reciprocal tariffs on people that trade with Russia. We already slapped some of those on India, and start going after the economic and financial jugular of the Russian economy. Is that something you would advise? Is, hey, we've talked for a week. You were in Anchorage. You didn't behave yourself. Sanctions are coming in 5 days. You better figure this out. Should we expedite those sanctions?
Yeah, I think that's where if Trump comes to the determination that it is in fact Putin who's playing games, I think we're going to see that play out, and I think he will give Putin a deadline like that says, we're going to go full-fledged, full court press with sanctions across the board, and we're going to hurt you economically. And so at that point in time, I think Trump's going to do it. I don't think he's there yet. I think Trump believes he can get it done, right? He wants to get it done. And if he does, that's a great accomplishment.
Yeah. A last question for you is that, sorry, I'm just looking at a note that popped in here. These sanctions, we're told, back when Ukraine was first invaded, we were told the U.S. put deadly sanctions on Russia and everything was going to stop and the ruble was going to go down, but it went up and the sanctions didn't have the impact. Are these sanctions going to have impact more than the previous sanctions did? Because they made a lot of promises under Biden that those sanctions were really going to stop Vladimir Putin.
I mean, unless we literally punish our, India and other places across the globe with massive tariffs, I don't think Putin cares that much about sanctions. I really don't think he cares if his economy suffers, quite frankly. But if we were to deploy those tariffs against all the other countries that say, if you buy Russian oil, then we're going to slap you with 100% tariff on all your products to the United States, that could get Putin's attention.
Yeah. It's amazing you look how much oil, liquid and gas that they're buying from, the Europeans are buying from Russia still, and yet they're wondering why Russia won't stop this stuff. The Europeans are funding this war by a large measure, more large than people realize.
100%. Listen, I always find it odd that Germany, which is number one purchaser of Russian oil in the world, turns around and then, criticizes everything while they're buying the oil. So that's the question. Will Trump reach with Germany and say, listen, if you continue to buy Russian oil, we're going to slap you with tariffs in the United States? And so if he does that, it could change the game.
John Deaton, if folks want to follow you, I said John E. Deaton 1 on the Twitter or the X. You have a website out there as well. How do folks find you?
They can find me at John E. Deaton 1. The Hard Truth is my radio show, and DeatonLawFirm.com.
You got it, John Deaton. Appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate your service as a Marine serving America. God bless you. Appreciate you being here. John E. Deaton 1 on the Twitter. You'll find all the connections that you can find there. Ladies and gentlemen, glad to have you here on the show. Want to remind you about Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Listen, if you're in the Colorado area where we broadcast from, you need to know Sherry. If you're thinking about real estate now, real estate later, real estate down the road, maybe you're wondering what are those interest rates going to do? How's the market going to work? Where are the boom towns? Where are the bust towns? Is it a buyer's market, a seller's market? Maybe you're just trying to get some information before you make the right decision. You got to call Sherry Cree, my friend, homeswithsherry.com. Great realtor. I highly recommend her to you. She's going to have a conversation with you. She loves to get to know you. And at the end of the day, her goal and her overall working, effort is to make sure she earns the right to become your realtor for life. Some people just want to get the sign of the yard, collect a quick commission, and move on. And, they're even doing real estate as a side-time, part-time gig, which I ain't got no, if you do what you do, you boo. But Sherry's focused on this thing called long-term relationship with you and your family, so that 5 years, 10 years, your kids want to sell a home, you want to have a rental property, you want to downsize, upsize. She wants you to remember her number. She wants to become your realtor for life. She wants to become your family's realtor, because she knows that if you go on a journey together in real estate, that real estate is something that can grow generational wealth. And she wants you to help you make the right decisions in the right area. Have a conversation. Maybe you're not ready to buy now, maybe you're not ready to sell now, but you're ready to have that conversation and get that strategy session. And don't forget, when you do buy, when you do sell with Sherry, she takes a portion of her own proceeds from that sale, and she donates a portion of that to the charity of your choice. And she also, my friends, gives a discount on those commissions to military, first responders, veterans. Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. What are you waiting on? Have the conversation. Maybe you're not going to sell till 6 months, or list a home for 6 months. It's fine. Start the conversation now. And that way you'll be fully prepared when it comes time. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. All right, a lot of discussion while John Deaton was in the conversation there about Lambert's, this place in Missouri that Rich evidently has a big fondness for. Our Loa, Stacy, our Texas ladies, they seem to have a fondness for Lambert. So I have asked Delilah to put it on my list that I should find a Lambert's, because I will be out in Missouri this week. So I'll work on that, and Delilah has put that on my list. I've never heard of it. I've been going back and forth to Missouri This is my son starting his third year in college. So I've been going back and forth to Missouri all this time, and I've never heard of a Lamberts. So maybe it's a different part of Missouri. I'm not sure. I'll find out. I'm going to look for it. I'm going to look for the Lamberts. But I'm also going to test out the Cracker Barrel. It brings us to the question of the day, my friends. Oh, by the way, Craig said something funny on YouTube. He says, I'm annoyed that the CEO of Cracker Barrel looks like she's Jessica Tarloff's sister. You know what, Jessica, some people are annoyed by the CEO of Cracker Barrel. I wasn't annoyed by her. I really wasn't. I mean, yeah, the little glasses, the Lois Lane naughty librarian glasses is kind of, that's a style. You guys do you. It's good. You guys have your own style and be your own thing, okay? Yeah, you do your thing. I don't care. But yeah, Jessica Tarloff is annoying. Now, if Jessica Tarloff was behind anything, I'm out. I don't care. I mean, I'm telling you, I change the channel anytime she appears on Fox because she has nothing intellectually valid to offer. There's a lot of great Democrats with a lot of great views, and Jessica Tarloff's intellectual bus doesn't go all the way to the end of the finish line. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. That's why I've never been on Fox News, and that's why they don't like me, because I call it like it is. Jessica Tarloff is one of those. She's a big turnoff. Big time turnoff. I'm sure she's a very nice lady, is what they like to say, but bless her heart, I just don't like her. And so yeah, I think the CEO of Cracker Barrel is less offensive than Jessica Tarloff. That's my opinion, and it's constitutionally protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. All right, anybody really offended? I mean this sincerely. I want to ask you, are you really bothered by, and I've got some other news stories besides Cracker Barrel, but I'm watching all the hoopla, all the conversation, all the hubbub about the Cracker Barrel, and I'm asking, why are you offended? I don't like the logo. Well, they took the white off the logo. Okay. I think it's a dumb logo. Don't get me wrong. Let me show you some. The internet wins every time. So they changed the old logo, and I think the best thing is that you have companies like Steak and Shake coming out and putting out statements from their CEO, and I think this is fantastic. This is America. This is free enterprise. Steak and Shake says sometimes people want to change things just to put their own personality on things. At Cracker Barrel, their goal is to just delete the personality altogether, hence the elimination of the old timer from the signage. Heritage is what got Cracker Barrel this far, and now the CEO wants to just scrape it all away. At Steak and Shake, we take pride in our history, our families, and American values. All are welcome. We will never market ourselves away from our past in a cheap effort to gain approval of trend seekers. So Steak and Shake is out there making some hay, trying to captivate some audience. Not sure Steak and Shake is a direct competitor of Cracker Barrel, but obviously there's some competitive juices flowing between the two. Here's another one that I think is funny, and I'm going to show you some actual artwork here, but this is funny. This is what people think of the logo. Is that a logo offensive? No, they took the old guy away and the barrel away, and Denny's is there with their logo in that same shape, and it's notice the caption. Denny's put this out. So Steak and Shake takes their hit, and then Denny's takes their hit and says Denny's, and there's the logo side by side. When you copy the homework but you change the font, see, Denny's is saying, hey, if you're going to go with a yellow logo in that shape, all you're doing is changing the font. You're just trying to be Denny's. And so I think it's fun to see all these other restaurants going after Denny's as he's going after the Cracker Barrel. I don't know if Waffle House has issued a statement, but Waffle House says we're never going to change. We haven't changed ever. We don't even change we barely change the grease in the fry pit half the time. So Steak and Shake has it right, though, just trying to rewrite the heritage. And a lot of folks say getting rid of that old guy there is getting rid of the heritage. And I ask you, when you see what you've seen, when you look at what you look at, and I mean this sincerely, there's an honest intellectual question. What is it that you feel they got rid of? Is it the old guy and the symbolism of Americana sitting there by that barrel explaining what a Cracker Barrel was? Again, the definition of the Cracker Barrel is soda crackers back in the earlier parts of America were shipped in barrels because they would break and to avoid breakage. And then once the soda crackers were out of the barrels, the stores would put them around and people would come in and lean on them and have coffee on them or play checkers on them. And they became the centerpiece, like the modern day water cooler. And that's what a Cracker Barrel is. And so maybe some hipster with skinny jeans living in his mom's basement, spending most of his time on TikTok and Instagram, did not realize that that iconic figure of the man at the Cracker Barrel meant so much to America. Is this going to be something that Cracker Barrel will really find hits their bottom line? And I know the stock markets have, gone up and down, down over the last week. But let me ask you, how many of you are intending to boycott the Cracker Barrel? Or is this just something that's going to drive you back to a Cracker Barrel? I'm just asking you a question. Now, the internet has really tried to help Cracker Barrel out. This is coming from the funny stuff. These are only just a few of them. Maybe you've seen this one. There's a new idea for the Cracker Barrel. You got Hunter Biden. I bet he's butt naked in that thing. And he's in the barrel. He's in the Cracker Barrel, but he's called it a crack barrel. And when they say crack barrel, my friends, they're not talking about him being butt naked in that thing. Now, you know what that means. Here's another one that you could look at. Cracker barely there. There's old Joe. Barely there, got his pitchfork. He's in the cracker as well. So there's some other branding ideas that we might want to use for the Cracker Barrel. Here's one. You ready for this one? Cracker Barack. He's only half cracker, right? He's only half cracker. He's not a full cracker. He's a half cracker. Cracker Barack right there and in the barrel with his pitchfork. And ladies and gentlemen, here's the solution. Cracker Barrel, you should rebrand. It's Sydney Sweeney. Yeah, I would recommend to you Sydney Sweeney come out there and lay in front of the barrel at any Cracker Barrel, and you will then have the youngsters. If the rebrand was a great effort to get the youngsters to come back to the Cracker Barrel, this is how you do it. That dumbass logo, that's this one, the little square there that looks like a Denny's knockoff, that's not going to attract the youngsters. The white paint is not going to attract the youngsters. I know we say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Maybe it was broke. Maybe you saw your clientele dying. You had to freshen it up a little bit. This right here you see on the screen is a bad freshen up. If you want to freshen up your logo, Cracker Barrel, that's the one. Maybe that's the one. You do it as well. The Cracker Barrel. Sydney Sweeney right there on the Cracker Barrel. All right. All done with those. Let me go through a couple of more news stories of the day before we do our meme roulette section of the show. But I mean that sincerely. I haven't found anybody that's really offended. Well, they're erasing America. Are you going to go there? Yeah, if I see a Cracker Barrel, I'm still going there. I just haven't found anything that is so offensive to me that it's not like they changed the name. They still call it Cracker Barrel. There's still some Americana. They changed some imagery. Am I wrong? Am I not being sensitive enough? Why are my feelings not as hurt as much as somebody else's? Or is this just one of those things that ultimately becomes good for Cracker Barrel because everybody's talking about it, and people that haven't thought about visiting or daunting the doors of a Cracker Barrel in a heck of a long time go back in there? I'm just not as offended as everybody else seems to be. And over the weekend, it became pretty hyperbolic in conversation. Everybody talking about the Cracker Barrel, and I'm just not that bothered by it. All right, let's a couple of other stories I want to get to. We talked about John Bolton earlier in the program. Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, is saying, and this is a I believe breaking news story as of today. Yes, today. Kilmar Abrego Garcia had to show up to the ICE office in Baltimore, and he had to check in to talk about his deportation and his trial, etc. Well, when he showed up in Baltimore, there was some speculation early this morning as I was watching the news that maybe they were going to put him an ankle bracelet on him and let him go back home and wait for his trial for trafficking in Tennessee. But evidently, they offered to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member that we're told is that what Kristi Noem calls him. They offered him a plea bargain and said, listen, okay, you have protected status that we're not allowed to send you back to your home of El Salvador because you're a gangbanger and everybody there are going to kill you. So, okay, we struck a deal and you can go live peacefully in Costa Rica. No jail, no anything. Just don't come back to America. They arranged it with Costa Rica, the government of Costa Rica. You can go live in Costa Rica and live happily ever after and get the hell out of our country. And Abrego Garcia says, no, I'm not going to take that deal. And so Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security said, well, you have a choice. We can't send you back to El Salvador. The old judge said we can send you anywhere except El Salvador. We're giving you an offer to go to Costa Rica. and you're not going to take that. Well, we're going to send you to Uganda. And Abrego Garcia says, I'll flip the coin. And so this morning there was speculation that Abrego Garcia was going to actually go into an ICE office, get an ankle bracelet, and be told, oh, good, so go wait for your trial in Tennessee. But this is a statement that's coming from the Homeland Security Office, Kristi Noem, on her X post on Monday. She says, today, ICE law enforcement arrested Kilmar Abrego Garcia and are processing him for deportation. President Trump is not going to allow this illegal alien, who is an MS-13 gang member, human trafficker, serial domestic abuser, and child predator, to terrorize American citizens any longer. Kristi Noem should have thrown into the scripture, and a big lover of the Democrat Party because they love him. Abrego Garcia was released from custody on Friday after more than 5 months of detention. He returned over the weekend to his family's home in Maryland. He had been ordered to check in with ICE on Monday morning and arrived with some supporters out there chanting his name and telling him how much they love him. Officials had offered to deport him to Costa Rica if he accepts a plea deal on transporting migrants living illegally in the United States. But without a plea, he could be moved to Uganda, which is lawyers say, well, that's dangerous. Well, take the Costa Rica deal, you jackasses. Abrego has pleaded not guilty, seeking dismissing of the charges. Noem has called him a monster, blasted activist liberal judge for allowing his release, insisting the government still considers him dangerous criminal and an immigration violator. So anybody who speculated that he was going to check into the ICE office and be told, run along and we'll see you next week or next month or a year from now, that's not happening. Kristi Noem has put out on the Twitter that Abrego Garcia has been arrested and is now facing his deportation. That's moving forward very, very quickly. The Maryland dad is going to go to Uganda. Somebody might ask me, Jimmy, if you're going to stop and see the Maryland dad when you go to Uganda? The answer is no. I go to Rwanda, not Uganda. But Uganda's not far away. But I've been to Uganda, but I'm not going to go see the Maryland dad. I did one time stop in Kenya to see Barack Obama's brother. He didn't come out and talk. I wanted to talk to him. Remember, he lived in a shack there, Barry's brother. I did try to find him in Kenya once. I didn't find him. I don't know where he was at. Washington, D.C. is getting cleaned up by President Trump with the National Guard. Maryland has a governor that's bat crap crazy. He's a far left lunatic. His name is Wes Moore, and he's learning a life lesson. On Thursday, Wes Moore slammed President Trump for constantly criticizing Baltimore's notoriously high crime rate and told the president to shut up. He went on to say that if Trump actually walked Baltimore streets, he would see that it's one of the great cities in America. And this is what Governor Wes Moore, the lunatic Democrat of Maryland, said. Donald Trump, if you're willing to walk out of our communities, keep our name out of your mouths. Moore exclaims in the video, because if you were willing to visit, if you actually were willing to walk our streets and not just talk about us from the Oval Office, you would see that Baltimore is one of the greatest cities in America. Anybody believe that Baltimore is one of the greatest cities of America? Well, Trump has gone absolutely nuclear on Wes Moore as of yesterday. He slams the governor's disgusting tone, his record crime, and went on to say that he's willing to send in the troops just like he did in D.C. and L.A. Governor Wes Moore of Maryland has asked, this is a quote from the president, he said in a rather nasty and provocative tone, that I walk the streets of Maryland with him. I assume he's talking about the out-of-control, crime-ridden Baltimore. As president, I'd much prefer that he clean up this crime disaster before I go there for a walk. Wes Moore's record on crime is a very bad one unless he fudges his figures on crime like many other blue states are doing. But if Wes Moore needs help like Gavin Newsom did in L.A., I will send in the troops, which is being done nearby D.C., and a quick cleanup of the crime. After only 1 week, there's no crime, no murder in D.C. Let me ask you, if you're a left-wing lunatic and you have the Trump derangement syndrome, is it really still smart of you to decide that you're going to side with a criminal and deny that there's crime in your cities and deny that there's crime in your states? You know, again, you want to get to a 70, 30, 80, 20, 90, 10 issue. People want to be safe. They want to be able to walk the downtowns of Denver. They want to walk the downtowns of Baltimore. The harbor there in Baltimore many, many years ago was a nice place, a place that I've told you really don't want to be around there even. Some of the touristy areas, you just don't want to be there. It's a dangerous, nasty cesspool of a place that these Democrats run. And because Donald Trump is simply saying, hey, can we clean up our cities? Can we clean up the capitals? Can we clean up the nation's capital? Can we make it where people are getting killed on the streets, mugged on the streets, raped on the streets, robbed on the streets? Can we do any of this? And Democrats, because it's President Trump wanting to make America safe, go absolutely crazy. Does anybody think that this is a winning technique or a winning strategy for the next election? I don't see how you do it, because Democrats, more and more, when you talk about law and order and keeping America safe, are saying it's safe here. It's perfectly safe here. The same way the lying sack of scum, Jared Polis, our governor here, said that there's no Tren de Aragua in Aurora, and it's an element of your imagination that you think these gangs are taking over these apartment buildings because they're just liars. They just want to deny the crime that's happening right underneath us, their noses, and right in front of our eyeballs. And I just don't see that to be a winning strategy, because over and over again, you have the Maryland governor now lying about the safety of the streets of Baltimore. You have Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass out there saying that California's safe and very happy. You have Jared Polis. You have Pritzker up in the mayor of Chicago as well, lying about the safety of Chicago. These people have raised cesspools of theft as cesspools of crime. And Donald Trump says, hey, could we clean these places up? These are great cities in America. Chicago, he said, one of the great cities in America, and yet it's dangerous in most of the places. No one wants to go there. And Democrats find themselves siding on the side of crime, and you just have to ask yourself, is that really a winning issue for the Democrats out there? I would say no, but any of you Democrats out there, feel free to tell me how it is that you like your party out there siding with the side of criminals and wanting to seemingly fight keeping America safe. There's a new analysis. Remember, we talked about the crime numbers that the Democrats put out? They were tweaking the books to like a murder on the streets or a mugging on the streets of Washington, which is called an accident. They were tweaking the numbers to make it look like violent crime was down in Washington, D.C. This is according to whistleblowers in the police department. Well, there's another way that the Democrats, the left, has been tweaking numbers. A new analysis by Crime Prevention Research Center find that the FBI has understated the number of times that armed civilians have stopped active shooter incidents in the United States. According to the FBI, citizens being armed have stopped 14 out of 374 active shooter cases in 10 years between 2014 and 2024. That's a rate of 3.7. But the CPRC, a nonprofit data watching on crime issues, said it uncovered 561 incidents during the same period in which armed citizens stopped about 202 of those, and therefore it's a 36% stoppage. So the FBI said, it's only armed citizens being armed doesn't really stop crime that much. It's only 3.7%. The CPRC has put out the numbers and said, no, it's more like 36%. CPRC said the percentage jumped to 52.5% when you exclude shootings that occurred in gun-free zones. So shootings that don't happen in gun-free zones, 52% of those potential mass shootings were stopped by armed civilians pulling out their weapon or brandishing their weapon and saying stop. According to the CPRC, the FBI is cooking the books. Their data is off because in some cases, civilians who intervened were listed as security guards, even though they were private citizens. The group also found that the FBI that armed bystanders who thwarted attacks were not counted if the suspects fled. So CPRC is doing a lot of work here, and they have classified the 2019 church shooting in White Settlement, Texas, involving a parishioner who shot and killed the gunman as being thwarted by a security guard, even though the man was not a security guard. So he was a parishioner of that church. So just because they tell you numbers that crime is low, just because they tell you that crime is low doesn't mean that crime is low. Just because they tell you there's no Tren de Aragua in Aurora, there doesn't mean there's no Tren de Aragua. And just because they mean that tell you that carrying a weapon is not going to really solve crime, they're lying to you. An armed society is a polite society. That's something you should remember. An armed society is a polite society. Indeed, it is. All right, good to have you here on the show. We're going to wrap it up here in just a moment. Want to remind you we're less than 2 weeks away from my charity golf event, Friday, September the 5th, at the charity golf event at Colorado National Golf Club in Erie, Colorado. We still have a few spots open, a couple of sponsorships open. Still time to get in. If you want to jump in, feel free to do so. And this is our biggest fundraiser of the year. This is our 9th year. Next year, we'll have a big celebratory 10-year anniversary golf event, and it's come a long ways, baby. It's become quite the event, and we'd love to have you there. Even if you're not a golfer, come see us. Come hang out with us. You can do that. Reach out to us. If you want to sponsor a foursome, feel free to do so. If you want to play in a foursome, feel free to do so. All sorts of ways that you can be involved. Friday, September the 5th. It's a great way. I know Sherry Cree, advertiser on the program, is going to be there. Lehman Lewis Financial will be there, as they were messaging me some funny golf antics that they said, we got to try this on the golf course this year. It's just a hoop. Producer Chad is there. He's playing in a foursome. It's a great time. It's a cast of characters, and you don't want to miss it. And you can just go to riverspromise.org and click the events page, and you can see how to register. It's Friday, September the 5th. That's going to be the Colorado National Golf Club in Erie. Starts early in the morning, so you have your rest of your Friday to get back on your day. You're off the course about 12, 1 o'clock. And then lunch and a few awards and prizes, and everybody goes on the merry way. It's a fun time. Riverspromise.org to get registered. I mentioned Sherry Cree. Sherry's going to be on the show, I believe, tomorrow. We set up her time. I'll confirm that with her. And usually she's going to be with us on a Friday. But for the next 2 Fridays with the golf tournament in 2 weeks and a week, and then this week I'm going to be out of Missouri. There will be no show on Friday. So the next 2 Tuesdays will be Sherry Cree, and then we'll get back on the Friday schedule. So, all right. What else am I missing here? We're going to do meme roulette, the meme roulette section of the show. We'll dive into that here in just a moment. The Uganda trip. You know, what's interesting, this guy, if he goes to Uganda, if they deport him to Uganda, he's probably going on a private jet. He's probably going on a private jet over there. And I'm thinking, could they pretend they're deporting me to Rwanda and fly me on a private jet, rather commercial? That'd be probably a nicer flight. Now, of course, he may be cuffed and stuffed in that jet, so I guess that's probably that. But anyway, I kind of find it. The guy flew private all the way from California back to Florida. The guy the criminal that was the truck driver, yeah, they flew him a private jet. Now, he was shackled, I'm sure, and they might not have offered him any peanuts along the way, but it's well, I guess you don't want to fly those thugs in commercial, these illegal thugs in commercial. That's probably better. Get them a private jet. But, you know, I don't know. It's a good ride if you can get it. Good ride if you can get it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the meme roulette section of the show. This means we steal memes, the stolen meme section, and I spin this around, and you know what we do. We have a little conversation. Oh, I've got to remove those. I'm sorry, producer Chad. I thought that was something you could do. I apologize for that. I'm working here. You don't know it, but I'm doing things right now that you don't even see. I'm working behind the scenes because I'm that kind of guy. Thank you, producer Chad, for reminding me of that. I did not realize I had to do that. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Ready? Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. It's Monday, isn't it? Husband brain storage. Sports stats take up 500 gigs. Useless trivia takes up 1 terabyte. Wife's instructions from 5 minutes ago. File not found. You ever wonder what the part of your brain is doing that used to know phone numbers? What happened to that part of your brain that used to know everyone's phone number? And now you don't know anyone's phone number. I'm just asking, what happened to that part of the brain? What's it doing now? I'm just asking. I don't know what that part of my brain's doing, but I used to memorize a lot of phone numbers. Now I don't know if I know anyone's phone number. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. When your mom tells you it's dress nice because you're going to Chili's. Oh, Volodymyr Zelensky got a suit on. Yeah, he got a jacket on at least. Is that a suit? I guess it's a suit. We can call it a suit. Yeah. Get out. Put your good clothes on, boy. We going to Applebee's. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Speaking of dressing real nice, imagine, if you will, it's the year 2026. Let's get it in the right voice. Imagine, if you will, the year is 2026. Jasmine Crockett's district is gone, and she's now working the register at the new Cracker Barrel. There we got a jobs program. What did Nancy Pelosi say to those people that with the Green New Deal and the pipelines that got to usurp from jobs? They should learn coding. What if Jasmine Crockett is going to learn how to do coding? Talk to Nancy. She seems to know how to make that happen. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we're fresh out of memes. We've used up all the meme. Oh no, here's a meme. We got a meme. Vikings, Minnesota. The Minnesota Vikings have added their third male cheerleader to the roster. Ladies and gentlemen, Big Mike, right there, third male cheerleader. That was not me. Lord Jesus, that was not me. That was producer Chad. Please don't hold me accountable for his actions. I'm not laughing. Really, I'm not. Round. That caught me off guard. I had not seen that one. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Liberals just moved in next door, so I changed my Wi-Fi network to Trump is your president. I don't think I have any liberal neighbors. If I do, well, I don't know. Producer Chad lives in a neighborhood where everybody gets together and hangs out. I don't even know the names of my neighbors. I mean, I know their names, but I don't know their names. I just wave at them. How you doing? Good to see you. It doesn't help that I have a moat with crocodiles in it. That doesn't help. It doesn't help. I just don't know. I know some neighbors that live like on the far end. His brother, yeah, he lives over there, and George lives over there, and Brian lives. Yeah, we have I guess a non-social neighborhood. I guess so. Probably because most of the people here are on witness protection. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Sorry. I think that guy used to work in radio. I think he used to do ex-pimp, homeless and whoreless. Pimp lives matter. Help the guy out. If you passed him on the street, you know for sure you'd give him some bucks, right? If this guy was on the street dressed like that, you would throw a couple of bucks his way and tell him to go to Lambert's and have a roll thrown at him. That's what you'd do. See, I tied it all together. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Oh, we have another one. Cracker Barrel rebrands. Rebrands, the Cracker Barrel. There's the rebrand. There's the before and after. If you haven't seen it, they removed the barrel, then the cracker. Yeah, there goes the cracker. He's out of there. Old guy, old geezer. Just trying to play some checkers with someone's all he's trying to do. Let's see if we have any more memes here. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. That could have milked the meme machine dry, my friends. That could have done it big time right there. I apologize we're out of memes, but we've had a lot of memes today and a lot of fun. All right, don't forget the golf tournament coming up Friday, September the 5th. I'm serious, I mean this. If you have not participated, you can do so. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. This will be one of the biggest times that I ask you towards the end of the year. I do some more fundraising on the program to try to get our end of the year goal. But this is our big fundraiser. It helps with operations, and we'd love to have you participate. And you can do a lot of ways. You can do that. You can sponsor a whole. You can sponsor a lot of sponsorships. Just throw a couple of bucks our way. That'd be great. To riverspromise.org. Make a donation. And we'd appreciate you participating. Even in the past, I don't think we had to have it happen this year. We do have one person sponsoring a great business sponsoring a veterans foursome. So they put 4 veterans on a foursome. Producer Chad's actually playing on that foursome that was sponsored. There's been other people that have done things like that in the past. So maybe you say, Jimmy, I can't play, but if you want to put a foursome together, first responders or teachers, or you want to sponsor a foursome, feel free to do so. I've sponsored high school golf teams to come out and play just to learn about the charity, learn about generosity and stuff. So there's a lot of ways you can participate in the golf tournament, even if you're not going to be there, whether it's just a flat donation, sponsor a foursome, whatever you do, we'll connect. We'll get people in there. Maybe you want an all ladies foursome. We can do that. I know what you're thinking. Delilah just said, I'd like to sponsor a trans foursome. Write the check, Delilah. We'll see if we can put that together. All right. That's awful. All right, here we go. We got to wrap it up on the program. Don't forget your donations, your registrations, all at riverspromise.org. riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Jeff says, I think I've got what you had on Friday. Please warn of laughter moments. Coffee is one thing. Yeah, Jeff, I know what you're saying. That was a quick cold. That was a quick flu, I guess. It passed through, and I do mean passed through very, very, very quickly. But I'm glad that I feel better today, and glad that we could survive the show. I didn't know if I was going to make it on Friday's show. The only reason I did Friday's show live is because I was supposed to host an event, a pre-golf party at my house for all of our sponsors for the golf tournament and key foursomes. So I was supposed to host a event at my home that night. And I told producer Chad, I can't bail on the show because I would like to know if I had the strength to do it. And by the time I did the show after 35, 40 minutes and I was exhausted, I waited about an hour and I said, we had to cancel the entire event on Friday at my house, which was sad, but I just didn't want to get anybody sick. And I didn't know if I'd be doing the show from like isolation or something. So we had to cancel an entire event at my house on Friday, but that's not, and I don't cancel stuff. I power through it, but I had to cancel that one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget riverspromise.org. Hey, if you'd like to have any questions about the show, sponsorship of the show, golf tournament, just reach out to us, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. Let me say it one more time, info@jimmylakey.com. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace.